Hello and welcome to AfriDominion. I am Freeman Singirankabo, and thank you so very much for tuning into our program today. And for those of you guys joining us for the very first time, welcome. We are so thrilled that you can have some time out of your busy schedule to join our program today. And for those of you who are joining for the very first time, please be sure to check us out, especially through our social media platforms, either be here on X, YouTube, Facebook, or any other television networks that we are utilizing to get to you and wherever it is that you may be across the globe. And for that matter, also, we'd like to give you an invitation for those of you guys who want to participate in real time. We have our Zoom open, as well as phone number for the studio. And by all means, guys, we are so thrilled for the opportunity to serve you again. It's been a while, guys, especially those of you guys that we haven't seen in a while. We have been busy. Nevertheless, we always thinking of each and every one of you guys in our midst. So what are we doing today, especially since this is almost like a special edition programming that we have today? Today, we are going to talk about the 30 years of commemoration of the KIBEHO Massacre. And for those of you guys who are not familiar with the KIBEHO Massacre, we will be talking about it 30 years afterwards. Will there be any justice for the 20,000 plus innocent lives that were killed in cold blood? That's what we are going to be discussing in our conversation today. So feel free to join the conversation, especially those of you guys who are in a time zone where you are going to be available online or join the conversation in real time. And for those of you guys who will be joining this conversation later on, we also encourage you to send in your feedbacks, be it good or bad. And I'm going to start this conversation first and foremost by telling every single family of Rwandese descendant, those of you who are affected in the genocide that has taken place in Rwanda 31 years ago. I'd like to take a few seconds to just have a silent moment to commemorate those lives that perished during the Rwandan genocide, or as officially spoken in Rwanda, the genocide against the ethnicity Tutsis of Rwandese people. All right, guys. So as we want to get on with the conversation today, for those of you guys who may not have the stomach to watch, especially those of you who are watching on television, the conversation today, we are going to be utilizing some of the images of which may be a little bit of offensive. We have tried our very best to clean the images so that it isn't too offensive. So for those of you guys who may not necessarily find this conversation or this programming appropriate, and if you are young, and if you know you are not supposed to be watching television, this may not be necessarily the program that is going to be suitable for you. So viewers discretion, I want to advise that this conversation, this broadcast, watch it with some discretion, because some of the images may not necessarily be appropriate for those of you guys. So what is the KIBEHO Massacre? That's where I want to start, because I am more than sure that the majority of you may not necessarily be aware that there's been a massacre in KIBEHO. Where is KIBEHO to begin with? KIBEHO is one of the places in Rwanda. It's one of the places in Rwanda where in 1995, I'm sorry, more than 20,000 innocent lives perished. And these innocent lives were massacred by the Rwandan Patriotic Front, or the Rwandan government soldiers today. Actually, they were being converted as the Rwandan government forces. They were literally butchered. They were literally killed in 1995. And since then, little to no publicity, there was little to no media coverage of the massacres, except that the people who were there, including witnesses, both on the United Nations side official narrative, basically, or official the official people who were there, at the same time as the people who actually were in those refugee camp or internally displaced camp within Rwanda. So what had happened then? Because I think it's critical that we tell the story as from the standpoint of what has happened. By the way, personally, I wasn't there. However, I also have been, I was in Rwanda when the genocide was taking place. So I can relate to a lot of the things that have taken place in Rwanda in 1994. And with that in mind, guys, I want to ensure that for those of you guys um, who were there. This conversation is meant first and foremost to heal those of you who were a part of the who were a part of the offense, or who were the victims, or who actually lived those moments. On the second part, we also want to tell the story for those voiceless people lives that can no longer speak, that can no longer tell their own stories. Guys, right now in Rwanda, there is a commemoration, 100 days commemoration for the Rwandan genocide, or 100 commemoration of the Rwandan people in the of the ethnicities Tutsis. And because of that, there is a very specific and guidelines as far as how to remember. And if you do not fit the criteria of those who are supposed to be remembered, you are basically discarded. And this has been the narrative for the past 30 for the past since 95, for literally for the past 31 years. In other words, only very specific group of people can commemorate their loved ones. And this is the very reason why we took the liberty today to discuss and talk about the KIBEHO massacre. Because in KIBEHO massacre, the majority of people who were murdered in cold blood or the Rwandese people of the ethnicities Hutus. I also want to put it up here that the Rwandan government no longer speaks of its population in terms of ethnicity. Yet we know that behind the scenes, everything is racially driven. Everything is racially driven, except that people are not allowed to speak it up openly. However, there is no way you can say genocide against the Tutsis without including the word Tutsi, because a Tutsi is a racial word, is a word that describes a tribe. In Rwanda, we have three tribes: the Hutus, who are mostly the majority, the Tutsis, who are minority, and another extinct group of a tribe called the Twa, TWA, that you barely hear, that you barely hear of as far as the story is concerned. So, what has happened after the Rwandan genocide in 1994? Which was triggered by the gun down of the Rwandan the Rwandan plane, Juvenal Habyarimana. The president's plane basically was shut down, and it triggered the massacre. Now, for the lack of better word, for the lack of proper words, I want to put it out here that that was a part or a spark of the whole entire war, though there are many narrative as to what started the war. We know that the Rwandan war started in 1990, October 1st, 1990, but in 1994, it was almost the climax at which the genocide started. Specifically on April 6, 1994, the Rwandan president Juvenal Habyarimana was coming from these negotiations with the rebel, which was the RPF, and on his way back home, his plane was shot down by two missiles as he was approaching to land at the airport. And ever since then, Rwanda and the Rwandan history has never been the same. Fast forward a year later, in April 22nd, 1995, the Rwandan government, basically the rebel-turned government, they went to the KIBEHO refugee camp, or internally displaced camp, where approximately 80 to 100,000 people stayed. And these were majority Hutus. There were Tutsis as well in the Twa, but the majority were the Hutus. So two battalion of the RPF or the Rwandan Patriotic Front went there and they circled the camp. By the way, we have many witnesses who have told their stories through through the recording we have been recording throughout the years. So about two battalion, which is approximately about 1,200 soldiers, more or less, they circled the camp. And once they circled the camp, from the 18th, they started abusing people. Guys, when we talk about abuse, I am trying to use the cleanest language so that some of you are not offended. But what has happened has been so bad, has been so terrible, to the extent that even up to this very moment, when you tell the story, it is very difficult to speak it in the words that should be utilized, especially on television. And therefore, there is a need to clean up the language as we tell the story, or as we discussed of what had happened. So, and that's why right now I want to start by first and foremost say that many innocent lives perished from the 18th. People were being killed, but now on the 22nd specifically, those 20 plus thousand innocent lives perished. Now, according to the narrative of the Rwandan government, they only reported that approximately what's the number that they used? The Rwandan government said that about 338 people, 338 génocidaires, from what they said, were killed in that internally displaced camp. However, the United Nations, they had its forces, about 200 forces who were there. There were the Australian forces. There were Australian forces. There were also some of these non-profit organizations like the Médecins Sans Frontières, Red Cross, who also were there. Now, the biggest shocking of it all, guys, there were satellite images. There were videos recorded, and there were images. And unfortunately, some of those images are still classified. We do occasionally get some of the declassified or unclassified videos and pictures that we can share, which even the ones that we will be sharing today, we try our very best to clean, but also to sort of like masculate some of the images which may be, which may deem a little bit of offensive to some of you guys. So from there, is exactly on the 22nd. From what they have said, from some of the witnesses' recount, it was raining. From one of the people who told us this story, the RPF opened a fire. They started shooting people. Not only they were shooting people, they also used machetes, bayonets. They also used grenades. So if you didn't get a clean death by bullets or a grenade, you die a very gruesome death, because you were butchered. Now, the most egregious or unfortunate of it all is that the entire world knows and have documented what has happened in Rwanda on this very gruesome day of April 22nd, 1995. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of innocent lives perished. Think about 2 battalion of soldiers, of Rwandese government soldiers. They were still being converting the RPF soldiers who literally indiscriminately killed people, mostly children, women, and elderlies. Didn't give the benefit of that as to whether this person was a killer or not. They were indiscriminately killing people, according to the witnesses. And as you can imagine, those who survived to tell the story are still even traumatized today. Let me show you guys some of the images, a little bit of the images we've collected, and I believe these images are a little bit of clean, that they are not going to be too offensive to you guys to view, but it has been the most. Even when I remember, even when I think about what has happened, I feel chills in my body. I literally feel chills in my body. And today I want to tell any one of you, brothers and sisters, who were in Kibeho in Rwanda, or who has a loved one who was there, our condolences, and we want to remember you. We want to remember your loved one who perished. And up to this very day, 30 years after, the Rwandese government has yet to acknowledge the massacre taken place. Those killers, those 1,000 plus soldiers who killed innocent lives, never faced justice, which is one of the most upsetting part of this whole Rwandese drama, if you would. Only one-sided has ever punished, or was ever punished. Up to this very moment, the Rwandan Patriotic Front soldiers, they were militia or rebel, have never faced justices, despite the fact that the United Nations and so many other governments and world leaders or military, including the intelligence agencies, global intelligence agencies. They have witnesses, they have images, they have videos of killing committed by the RPF, yet 30 years after, not one single person was taken to court. Not one single person was taken to court to account for those gruesome killings, a massacre that has taken place in Kibeho. Now, if they can show us some of the images that I want to share with you guys. And again, please viewer discretion advised, because you may find some of these images offensive. Yet the purpose of sharing with you some of those images, it's simply for you to imagine what has happened. Indiscriminately murdering people in cold blood, knowingly that nobody will say anything, knowingly that you can get away with it. They have literally got away with it 30 years after. None of them has yet to face justice. What does that say? What does that suggest about the Rwandan justice system? If you can kill a person or people knowingly that nothing will happen to you, what does that tell? What does that tell people who have a little bit of power, a little bit of influence? They've done worse than just killing people. They have done worse than just killing people. And I hope these images are a little bit of blurred so that you guys don't get to see the faces of these individuals. Guys, many people lost their lives. Look around, guys. Look at those soldiers. Look at those bodies. Take a look. Some of those bodies were too close. You could easily identify the images, but we tried the very best so that we don't show you guys the images. But children being literally butchered, grenade thrown amongst in the midst of them, machetes. As you can see, these soldiers are pretty close. Satellite images showing people being killed in cold blood by two Rwandese government battalion or RPF battalion. Guys, as we remember those who have perished, as we remember those who lost their life during the Rwandan genocide, we must also remember these brothers and sisters who lost their lives in Kibeho in cold blood. But we also must request that the international community bring to justice every perpetrator who has taken part in that. Guys, it gets better. It gets better because according to sources that we have, the Rwandan authorities, especially when the massacre was taking place, when those 20 plus thousand people were being killed, the then defense minister, Paul Kagame, who is now the Rwandan government, it said that he was the one who ordered the massacre of these people. It is said that he's the one who ordered the massacre. There's no beating around the bushes, guys, of this allegation. Because everyone in Rwanda, it is literally, you meet so much resistance, you meet so much you how do I pull it in a way it doesn't offend you guys? Rwandese people today, they no longer use their mouth out of fear of being labeled as genocidaires, out of fears of being labeled as haters, out of fear of being labeled as the genocide deniers. And now God helps you if your family comes from a Rwandan ethnicity of Hutus. You could easily be literally harmed just because you belong to a group. Discrimination is alive today in Rwanda, guys. Imagine indiscriminately killing 20 plus thousand people by machetes, by grenades, by bullets, by bats, babies, children, women, elderlies, indiscriminately killing just because you belong to an ethnicity Hutu. It is sad. In 2025, we'd still talk about these gruesome images. Guys, look what I see here. Why? By the way, these were the images that I thought were a little bit cleaner. And even with that, as you can see, we had to blur the images so that some of them, some of those aren't necessarily showing the faces, so that you can be able to tell who's who. There are also videos which we cannot show here on television. So all this evidence, it's still there. All this evidence, it's still there. The killers, those soldiers who killed indiscriminately, are becoming old men and women 30 years after. They're living large, knowingly that no harm will ever come to them whatsoever. The killers, these are not Interahamwe's. These are soldiers who committed this egregious massacre against those people. And now, as remember them, yesterday on the 22nd specifically of April, that's when the KIBEHO Massacre was a commemoration of the KIBEHO Massacre. Guys, what are we becoming as a people? If you do not belong to a particular group that is loved, anybody can come and harm you. Anybody can come and accuse you of wrongdoings. Accuse you of wrongdoings, knowingly that you are innocent, and it sticks. I cited justice where The winners and losers are picked not by evidences, but by the personal preferences of the so-called mighty ones. It is sad that we still see this kind of egregious acts in 2025 and beyond. Look at these images, guys. It would be a remiss also if I didn't say that there are some of the soldiers who also recorded, but out of fear of retribution to the most powerful politicians that are in power today, some of the images they don't even want to associate themselves with those images. But one thing that has happened to the United Nations soldiers, especially those who have told the stories, those in Australia, and few from Zambia and other countries, they have gone mad, guys. They have gone mad. Why? Because they've witnessed people being butchered, killed, and did not do anything. Can you imagine the United Nations security forces were there in those internally displaced camps, witnessed, recorded evidence of mass atrocity, mass killing, massacre taking place by the Rwandan government soldiers, and let it take place, guys. Let it take place. And up to this very moment, it's just another story. So if you are amongst those who lost a loved one, we would so very much love to hear your story. We would love to hear your story. Because I have come to realize that only us, the people, we can tell our own stories, especially those stories that are not sexy. Those stories that may make some people look unworthy. Some people lose the respect that the world had for them. Like in Rwanda, a lot of these generals, a lot of these high-ranking officials participated in those massacres. Not just the KIBEHO massacre that we are talking about today, but many, many, many massacres. Even the genocide, even though it's not officially recognized. And in 2025, these families are still not allowed to remember their loved ones. To make matters worse, they were never allowed to bury their own, their loved ones, because their bones are mixed with those other bones of the Rwandese ethnicity Tutsis, whom it said that they were killed during the genocide in 1994. Guys, we are sick as Rwandese people. But also, the international community has been contributing to this sickness we have as a people. Be losing the good side of the humanity, where you cannot bury a loved one, where you cannot get justice if you do not belong to a special interest group. What has become of us, guys? What is becoming of us young people? There is an equalizer in all of this. None of us can live forever, guys. It's unfortunate that even though some of you will never face justice, but we know that God himself will have justice for those voiceless, those who have never received justice. So today I thought that it would be proper to just remember the lives of those loved ones who perished in KIBEHO on April 22nd, 1995. From the 18th of April, 1995, all the way to April 23rd, that internally displaced camp was literally a blood bath, and the entire world covered it up, which is the worst part of it. The Médecins Sans Frontières have witnessed what has happened in KIBEHO massacre. The United Nations has witnessed what has happened. Do you know that they even entertained the idea of taking some of these Rwandese officers and soldiers to the ICTR, the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, back in Arusha? But then the Defense Minister Paul Kagame rejected the idea. Guys, this is the most craziest thing in history of humankind that we are still living today. Many genocides have been committed. Multiple massacres are being committed even after this day. Look what is happening to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Millions and millions and millions of people have perished. Yet there hasn't been any justice. What's becoming of us as a people? What is becoming of us as a people? It is sad. It is very sad that as intelligent as we have been becoming as a people, we still kill each other indiscriminately. But also bodies of influences, government or organizations that have such an influence to do something about these egregious killings decided not to intervene. Imagine a strong body as just like the United Nations, observing people being killed and doing nothing about it. I don't understand how we can even still honor these bodies years after years after years after years. Now, the United Nations, out of shame or whatever it is that they have decided to utilize as an excuse as to why they've never helped those internally displaced refugees, they claim that they had a limited presence in those camps. Secondly, they say that that it was they only have roughly about 170 plus soldiers against approximately 1,300 RPF soldiers. So they were afraid to help the people, claiming that they would also be killed if they engaged. They basically claimed that they were outnumbered and they decided to save themselves. Such a story of African people. I get upset, guys. I get upset, but I also get saddened that many African lives do not matter. Many African lives aren't, your life doesn't have some sort of value, just like other lives of other human beings on planet Earth. And it's sad. And that makes me ask each and every one of you, at what point will we tell the world, will we tell the people that your lives matter? My life matters. Your life matter. Our lives matter. For those of you guys who have members who have who are related to those of you to those who perished on April 22nd, 1995, our condolences, guys. We know it is hard to tell the story, a gruesome story, a dark story of what has happened to your loved one, because it is hard. It is hard to speak of that story, but it's a reality. It's a reality that has been prevented from being put in the open. The Rwandese government doesn't want the world to know that they've committed massacre. Many members of the government forces today, including also within the government, have participated in these killings and are still living large up to this very day. What kind of justice is that? What kind of justice is that? We have been told that the members of the United Nations who were in Kibeho included soldiers from Australia, soldiers from Zambia, some from Australia, Zambia, and there were some undercover soldiers from other big nations who were taking pictures and doing recon work, and they just watched. They just watched, and it was told that they had to have that they had strict rules to simply observe what was happening and to not engage, guys. Others claim that the Rwandan government threatened to actually shoot them the same way they were shooting and killing these innocent lives. It was also reported to some of them that they were Interahamwe who had mixed themselves with these refugees. And as they didn't have time to separate who was who, they just decided to literally kill every single one of them, including those babies. Guys, I don't know if you saw those pictures. A bunch of them looked like they were they were children. There are some videos we cannot even show you on television, or even clean up and show you on these online platforms, because they're just too gruesome. It's hard to show you the evidence of what has happened. And the worst part of it, those families up to this very moment has yet to receive justice. Zero humanitarian effort, zero justice rendered. And then taking their bodies and mixing them with the bodies of those Rwandese people from the ethnicity Tutsis, and claiming that they are all Tutsis who were killed in 1994. Guys, we are sick as a people. We are sick. And history will always judge us by these egregious acts. Those who have been selling genocide, those who have been selling, who have been literally commercializing human body parts, commercializing them to make you pay, to make you feel sorry. I've never seen it anywhere on planet Earth except in Rwanda. Up to this very moment, there are people who have yet to be buried. Their bones are being displayed up in the open 31 years later. And others are literally excavated. Now I wonder, where are the bones of those 20 plus thousand people who were killed? Have they also been, have they mixed them with the bones of the so-called Rwandese people from the ethnicity Tutsis? Guys, it is sad, but we are sick. That's what I conclude, that we are sick as a people. And it would be a remiss if I didn't ask those you from the lower generation, those of you guys who are in your 20s, teens, 20s, there are certain behavior, there are certain lifestyle, there are certain culture that we have in Rwanda that we must uproot. A culture of death, a culture of lies. You can easily lie, you can easily persecute people just because you have successfully labeled an individual here or an individual there. It is really sad, guys. But also now the world is literally persecuting everybody who doesn't speak the same language as the very special interest groups. If you happen to have power and I don't subscribe to your narrative, I don't subscribe to your thought process, I can easily be persecuted. Now we see it globally. It's not even just in Rwanda. What is happening to us, guys? It literally makes me sad to see that 30 years later, the KIBEHO massacre has yet to be prosecuted. Those who committed those egregious acts, those who massacred those people, are still living large today. still living large. I don't know how that is okay. I just don't see how that is okay in today's world in 2025. But also, the worst part of it, those families who should be grieving for their loved ones, remembering their loved ones, are not allowed to remember their loved ones. They cannot openly say that my family member was in KIBEHO, internally displaced camp, out of fear that they actually may be persecuted. I can speak of this because I feel a little bit of safe. I would not dare speak of the KIBEHO massacre if I lived in Rwanda today, as you are all aware, an open prison. Rwanda claims to have a functioning justice, yet they have yet to render justice to any one of these family members, because they said that only approximately 330 plus genocidaires were killed by the army. But the satellite pictures never lie. Videos, recordings never lie. And I would actually ask that the United Nations declassified some of these videos. I would ask that the Australians share publicly some of these gruesome pictures and videos. They have videos that are classified. They have pictures that are still classified, showing thousands and thousands and thousands of killings. Satellite images showing these killings exist, but we never see a light of day unless some of those people are dead. Maybe another 10, 20 years they may show up. Imagine 50 years after some of these images start to surface. Having access to even these images that we have here was quite a daunting task, because you can trace who took a picture. You can tell where this image came from, and some of them are still afraid even today, 30 years later, because there are forces that have been holding hostages the truth, forces that are holding literally hostage the truth of the KIBEHO massacre. And that makes me sick in my stomach. It literally makes me sick in my stomach, because the humanity we claim, the advanced race we claim to be as human beings on this planet, we still don't have a mind and a heart that has Ubuntu within ourselves. And that's pretty sad, guys. That's pretty sad. So for this reason, guys, I won't speak too much. I wanted to take some time today to remember those of you who lost loved ones there, but also as a people, as one people. We always talk about never again, never again, never again, never again. Yet these atrocities keep on happening and happening and happening, and the perpetrator never see one day in a court. At what point will we say enough is enough and bring all the perpetrators to justice? That's a question I would love to ask every single one of you guys. It's very sad. It's really, 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 really sad. I don't understand it personally. I don't understand it. But I want to end it here, guys. I want to end it here, mostly thanking those of you who have shared with us some of those images, especially some of the organizations that have shared with us some of testimonies, some of the images that has taken place there. Eventually, we will rebuild. We will rebuild the full story at least to the best of our ability, based on the available images and videos that there is today. We will rebuild that history. We will rebuild these museums so that actually, as a society, we can say that, hey, we should never cover atrocities and massacre like this. 30 years after, 30 years after, we still have so much work to do. That's one thing I can tell you guys. We still have so much work to do. How can the world cover up a massacre of 20 plus thousand people? Many narratives are there, especially the one that suggests discrimination because of a skin color. But again, today we are responsible, guys. Today we are responsible as a people. Another thing that I found to be so offensive: if you are a suspect to a crime and the world allows you to investigate yourself, how can you possibly incriminate yourself? There was a shamble court proceedings that took place, where the RPF itself investigated the massacre, which is why they say only about 338 people were killed, and most of them were genocidaires. Only. Imagine a camp that had between 80,000 to 80 to 1,000 people, internally displaced individuals. After hours and hours and hours and hours of sharings and machetes and grenades and butchering, only about 338 people were killed, mostly genocidaires. Can you even imagine that kind of lie taking root, holding as a narrative that everybody has to go with? That's what kills me today, 2025. In 2025, we still swallow lies after lies after lies. Not only we have a corrupt leadership on the local level, but also on the international level. The public is fed bogus information, lies after lies, and would still eat it. Justice not rendered. 30 years later, I know of not one single case, not one single filings, not one single filing of any one of these victims from the KIBEHO massacre, not one single court proceedings that I know of. Plenty of evidence. Plenty of evidence. We're talking about factual evidence, recordings, not by even Rwandese people, foreigners who witnessed what was taking place. Recordings that can literally say such and such person did this, such and such a person did that. Yet they're now utilized because of money, because of influence, and so many other reasons behind. The International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, they were aware of these killings. Yet they say, no, our mandate is to only prosecute the Hutu genocidaires, or the Rwandese people from the ethnicity Hutu, who were the one who committed genocide in Rwanda. The Front Patriotic Front, the RPF, or the Rwandan Patriotic Front, were never to be persecuted by any means. Yet they committed atrocities and massacres themselves. Up to this very day, not one single soldier, not one single member of the RPS was ever prosecuted. So you talk about bias, not just on the local level, regional level, but also international level. We have advocacy of small groups, non-profit organizations, or some of the individual advocates. You have people who have been trying their very best to speak up and to call out for these for these atrocities, for justice to be rendered. But a lot of these organizations, including individuals, are torpedoed, are literally followed, are persecuted by governments and special interest groups, are lied upon. You literally face the devil when you challenge the status quo. And consequently, the majority of them literally do not speak up to this very day, 30 years later. The few individuals who have attempted have met with killings, disappearances, and life in prisons or imprisonment, including also being disappeared. So it is very difficult to fight a system that's there to literally neutralize you by any means necessary, especially when you step outside of the narrative. So I want to challenge you, young people, today. True reconciliation of Rwandese people can only exist when all sides have been heard. When every single person, family, when their voices have been heard. If I only privilege one group, and I say you are the only group that can that can commemorate your own people, that can remember a loved one who has perished, who have been indiscriminately killed, massacred. What do you think is going to happen to those other families that were never allowed to remember their own? 30 years later, 40 years later, 50 years later, we are going to keep the cycle going, and I wish that we literally open the cycle, cut open the cycle, say no to a cycle of extrajudicial killing, put an end to a cycle of killings, of lies. Only we can do it our own as a people. No foreigners would ever do that for you at all. So the challenge is immense. First and foremost, a lack of persecution. There's no way you can take serious a system that is literally persecuting itself. Killing 25,000 or more people in cold blood and still say, oh, nothing has happened. Only about 330 something genocidaires were killed. But the evidence showing otherwise. The Human Rights Watch, many authors, government and non-government organizations have literally collected evidence after evidence after evidence after evidence after evidence. But they always say, April is a very, very, very sensitive month. May is a very, very sensitive month. June is a very, very sensitive month. We cannot speak about these issues openly. Why not? Killing is killing. Evil is evil, whether it's in April, May, or June. Evil is evil, whether it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. Evil is still evil, whether it's evening or daytime. Evil is still evil, whether it comes from a Hutu, a Tutsi, or a Twa. Evil is still evil, whether it comes from a government of Rwanda or a foreigner government. So we have to literally be bold and boldly stand and say no to these evil thoughts, to these evil actions, to these evil narratives that have become like a culture. What can I say? I literally wanted to take some time to remember every single one of you who have lost a loved one. Wanted to take some time to remember those who loved their loved ones, those who perished in the during the KIBEHO massacre in Rwanda. The world never remembers you, but we know, and we remember you. We know that you have existed, and we will wish, and I would love, and I will wish that you take some courage and openly remember your loved one. Speak of him highly. Tell a story or two. Make sure that memory never perishes. Make sure that they do not become they do not become invisible, invisible completely to history. They're no longer alive, but let's keep their humanity alive. So, and with that in mind, guys, I want to get off, but saying that we have so many, we have so much to do. We still have a long way to go, because justice denied is justice denied for every single one of us as a human being. Anytime you render justice for one group and you persecute another group, it is justice denied to all humanity. So we got to stop this at some point. I also want to, it would be remiss if I didn't finish thanking those of you soldiers who were part of the United Nations, those of you who are still alive, who have given us permission to utilize some of your pictures and videos. We know that some of it we cannot publicly show it, but at least we use it to study, to learn in private, in private settings or private, other private gatherings. If you have images, if you have other materials that we can use to reconstruct the full story, as raw, as bad, as heinous as it can be, let's please help us out so we can reconstruct that history. Because up to this very moment, that history is one of the unsexy history that nobody wants to bring upon. No government, especially the Rwandan government, doesn't want to bring in the open. So I thank those of you guys who have made it possible to get that story to be told. I really commend every single one of you guys. So, guys, thank you kindly for allowing me to remember you today. Thank you so much for those of you guys who are with us today, whether you're following from a television, whether you're following us from radio station, whether you're following us from our social media platforms and other means of communication. I am grateful for the opportunity to serve you today. And I also want to say that we are doing a whole lot of work on the side, because we believe that eventually we have to seek justice for every single one of us as a people. So until next time, guys, I'm Freeman Singirankabo here at AfriDominion studio. I want to wish you guys a beautiful evening. Those of you guys who are in the evening, have a good night. Those who are in the morning, have a beautiful morning. And those of you guys who are still in daytime, enjoy your day until I see you again. Peace, and signing off. I'm Freeman Singirankabo. Bye-bye.